But it turns out that she's a homeschooling mom. And so we got to talking, and you know, our homeschooling moms just can't stop talking once they find out they homeschool. She was telling me how her son gets the Gardiner Scholarship. So I wanted her to meet you, and I wanted her to tell you a little bit about what it was like for her, and so you just go for it.
Okay. We found out about the Gardiner Scholarship after we had been on McKay for 2 years. McKay put us in Tier 1. We didn't get a whole lot of funds. And we were told by a private school we were at about the Gardiner Scholarship, and that it might be something to look into. It was at that point that we learned that there was a lot more money involved, that we could actually get my son the services that he needs. My son has Asperger's. He was diagnosed at 9 years old, so a little late as far as diagnosis goes. We had been moved from regular public school to emotional behavioral disorders class, which basically meant he was getting picked on and bullied every single day. We pulled him from there, put him in a private school, paid out of pocket for what McKay didn't cover. The private school told us we would need a full-time person to be with him all day in order for us to keep him there, even though there was only 6 kids in the class.
Wow.
And that they didn't have the resources to help him either. So what we did was we pulled him. We started homeschooling. I can tell you now, he gets the occupational therapy that he needs, he gets the curriculum that he needs, and he's thriving. And when we did our portfolio review 2 days ago for our homeschool, he is light years ahead of where he should be for his age, just because we're able to give him what he needs. And if it wasn't for all the work we've done to get the Gardiner Scholarship where it is, we wouldn't know what we'd be doing. We were really close to institutionalizing him.
Oh,
so you have been, the Gardiner Scholarship has literally saved our lives. And my son's. And now he wants to go to MIT. So
it gives these kids a
story.
Yes, it gives them
wow.
hope. And it's like, I see so many times that, you know, the love of learning dies, that light dies. Because every child has it, no matter what their abilities are. They all want to learn. There's that something, but when it dies, it's so hard to get that spark back. So, like, when you told me the story last year, I was just like, you know, chills up and down, goosebumps, and like I am now. And I was just like, you know, it's when you give that child that love of learning back, it's like the sky is the limit.
Absolutely.
And so it's such a game changer. So everybody needs to know about this.
And it's no condemnation of the public school, but they can't serve every child. And the parent cares about that child more than anybody in a school setting. And we know that they're not going to get even everything that's on an IEP that's designed for that child. And the parent is going to fight. I tell everybody that say, well, how are parents going to do this? And I'll say homeschool parents are the most resourceful parents I know. They will find what their child needs, and they will find a way to get it for their child because they're that committed to their children.
Yes.
So to think that child had no future except institutionalized, and now he's looking at going to MIT, is a total game changer.
Yeah.
Oh,
And it changes the parents' lives too, because we were at the end of the rope and we didn't know there were other options out there, and we couldn't afford a full-time person, an ABA, to sit with him all day
a sitter.
at school, basically.
In the private school, the private schools can't
Right.
deal either.
So for us,
A lot of
being
them.
able to have homeschooling as an option, every kid learns differently. And there are kids who do great in a public school environment, and there are kids who do great in a private school environment, and there are kids who need one-on-one tutoring or homeschooling. And if that's what your child needs, you need to have the option to be able to do it.
Where do you live?
I'm in Lake Mary.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. So we need to exchange contact information.
We need your op-ed in the newspaper to share your story, because it's such a terrific story. I mean, just the fact that this was going from an institutional to MIT is like, wow. I mean, just think about what our society is going to experience with your child in a few years. A positive future. He won't be supported in a state institution. And what a difference it makes in his life.
And he's going to grow up to be a contributing member of society
Exactly.
instead of a member of society who takes contribution,
Right.
instead of be able to actually contribute.
So how much does that save the state in the long run should be the question we're asking.
Absolutely.
Lots.
Not what does it cost, how much
does
will
it
it
save?
ultimately save?
I think the other thing is the opportunity cost. There's always going to be dollars that are spent on those who are unable to participate in society. Those people, there are people who that's inevitable. There are syndromes, there are conditions that long term, once mom and dad are gone, there's not a whole lot more that can be done. I think it's up to us as a group, as a society, to make sure that we minimize that.
Right.
And making sure that kids have what they need. And for us, Gardiner has been that.
That is an awesome story. Thank you so much for sharing it.
It was
with me.
I'm
very
glad to
God
meet you.
incidental. It was literally, we had talked like a month or so ago, are you going to be at the conference? I'm going to the conference. And then we're like, yay, we'll see each other. And then literally like an hour and a half ago, she's like, I'm here, are you here? I'm like, yes, I'm here. And I'm like, why don't you come down at the end of our interview? Because I would love for Brenda to meet you. So I just know that God orchestrated that for us.
The one thing as a lobbyist is you work for all of these things, and I can't take full credit for the Gardiner Scholarship. I was just one of the players, but I dripped on everybody for 10 years about the importance of this, and finally the time came that all the factors came together to make it happen. And, having Andy Gardiner with a child with disabilities as the Senate president, the timing was perfect. That was the opening to make this happen. So I can't take the full credit for having it passed, but it was a dream that I had for 10 years to see this available to home education families and to hear the stories, because I don't meet the kids. I work and in my mind I know, okay, this is going to help parents because I know homeschool parents. I know how they're going to work to make their child as successful as that child can possibly be. But then to hear the success stories makes what I do so worth the time I spend doing what I do.
And Governor Bileka had a large part to play too. Representative Bileka, is that
Yes.
right? Bileka, which is, he's from the Miami-Dade?
Yes.
Yeah.
He's the chair of the Education Committee, and he did carry that bill when it was a couple of years ago as a representative. He carried that bill and worked really hard to make that happen.
Because he had homeschooling children himself.
Yes.
But they weren't necessarily special needs.
No.
But he understood the heart of the homeschooling parent.
Right.
So that was instrumental. So
Some of the people that work for the Foundation for Florida's Future, which was the foundation that Governor Bush set up when he left office, they push for educational reform, and it's just like all of a sudden all the right people are in the right places for this to happen. And so timing is really critical in lobbying, and you just have to wait till everything converges at the right point to do something. So it was exciting. Anyway, they don't now take them out in the public school and do an IEP so they know what the services are. They put them in a classroom and require the teacher to go through these various steps to determine if they can be integrated into the classroom and learn within the classroom. Many kids with autism also have the sensory issues. Not all, but some, most of them. And so you're putting them in a classroom where there's so many different distractions and so many different sensory things that they can't focus on learning. They're just trying to deal with the environment. And you can't put them in a classroom like that. But I know 100 years ago when I interned, I was in a school, and then I was doing some substitute teaching, and one day I went into a classroom with children with disabilities, and they had all kinds of disabilities in that classroom, and it was total chaos. They were they were all acting in different ways, and the disability, I don't know how the teacher managed with all of those disabilities, but for the children, the last thing they wanted to learn were letters and numbers. They couldn't even focus on it. So to have that child one-on-one at home in an environment that you can control, you can actually provide education to that child.
And there are days where we go through a day and a half's worth of work. And there are days where we can't even get through half a day's worth of work. Because maybe the day before we had to go to Walmart. And that's an overload. And so we have to recoup for a day and a half before we're able to jump back in. But that's okay, because then we work on Saturdays. And we do have a pretty rigid schedule, because one of the things I've learned from him being in therapy is that rigidity gives him the support system intellectually to relate to that he needs. So we have a very rigid system, but at the same time, there are days when we just have to give a little. And you don't get that in a classroom. The teacher has to keep up with the bulk of the students, whereas with him now, I can meet him at his level. And there are days when he breezes through a math concept. So there's no need to keep doing the rote repetition. And then there are days when he just can't get it. So we're going to do it for 3
that's the beauty of
weeks.
homeschooling. We can
It
build
is.
individually. We know we got the concept, move on.
Exactly. And I think what's interesting is they tested his IQ. The public school system did. And they told me he's got a 145 IQ.
Oh my word.
Yeah.
And then here we are telling me he can't function in a classroom, and that if we get him to follow 2-step instructions, we're doing a good thing today. And his IEP was all over the place. And then for them to move him out of the classroom into an emotional behavioral disorders class, and let me tell you, that classroom, he sat on a computer playing games, not educational games, just games, all day. 0 on the education factor as far as actual academic work. And they enrolled him in Florida Virtual School, or Seminole County Virtual School, and had me do his academics at home.
So you were
they're babysitting
homeschooling
him.
him in a public school.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
You made the right choice.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And just seeing how far he's come, and that here I have a child who should have just completed 5th grade, but instead completed 6th grade academics, 7th grade math. We're heading into pre-algebra. It shows me that.
And you take days off because he needs to take days off. So
Right.
it just shows how effective educating him at home is. You catch those teachable moments,
Absolutely.
whatever it is for that child, when he can focus and move ahead.
And when you're also opening up the door for, we spend $8,000 of our scholarship goes to occupational therapy. She comes to my house twice a week for an hour and works with him. We're either working through him just getting through his schoolwork, his handwriting, which is atrocious. She meets us at Walmart and helps us just understand the sensory overload so he can work through that. Because part of living is having to go to the grocery store.
True.
And so having the resources to be able to make sure that he gets all of that therapy now, so that way when he does head off to college, because MIT makes you live on campus the first year, and mom is not there, that he can handle it. And I'm sure he'll be able to.
That's
But that's
so great.
because of the scholarship.
Thank
Wow.
you for sharing your story.
Yes, thank you so much.
You're welcome.